just more salt in the wound for the 250,000 families who lost people to COVID.
Cost of borrowing is surging, prompting people to repay their loans at a record rate.
The Isle of Rum, dramatic landscapes, are a nature lover's paradise.
Coming up, the government to the COVID inquiry, see you in court, and did a boat's wash cause the Bournemouth deaths? See you in court, the government digs in against its own COVID inquiry. As the deadline to hand over Boris Johnson's unredacted WhatsApps and notes passed, it defied the inquiry's chair, Baroness Hallett, to the disgust of bereaved families.
It's just more salt in the wound for the 250,000 families in this country who lost people to COVID.
The government believes handing over everything would set a precedent for breaching ministers' privacy. But for its critics, of course, it smacks of cover-up. Also on News at 10 tonight. A pleasure boat impounded by police as two families grieve the loss of their children off Bournemouth Beach. Has nothing changed at Westminster? A Labour MP suspended, accused of sexually harassing young women. The downfall of a war hero, Australia's most decorated living soldier, and a court case which has shocked a nation. Biden takes a tumble at a military graduation. And hanging on for dear life, the 50-year-long study on a Scottish island unlocking the secrets of nature.
This is ITV News at 10 with Julie Etchingham.
Good evening. It was, of course, the government that set up the COVID inquiry to look into, amongst other things, how ministers handles the pandemic. All too often in British public life, inquiries are ordered to buy some time for those at the centre of a storm. The main hearings have barely begun, but the inquiry has already started biting back, demanding to see the WhatsApp messages and notebooks of Boris Johnson, the Prime Minister at the time. Today, the government of his latest successor, Rishi Sunak, he of the integrity and accountability claim, refused to back down. It has taken the unusual step of asking for another judge to review the inquiry's demand. The message to the inquiry, then: there are important principles at stake, so see you in court.
Chatting amicably with Ukraine's President Zelensky at a summit in Moldova, Rishi Sunak may have hoped to focus on European security today, but he couldn't escape questions about the COVID inquiry and whether he'd cooperate fully or not.
As I said, we've been long cooperating with the inquiry. Important that we learn the lessons of COVID so that we're well prepared in the future. Government's considering very carefully next steps, but it's confident in its position.
But as the 4 o'clock deadline to hand over all the messages requested passed, it became clear the next steps meant a court challenge. In a letter to the COVID inquiry chair, Baroness Hallett, the government wrote, "The Cabinet Office has today sought leave to bring a judicial review. We do so with regret. We consider there to be important issues of principle at stake here, affecting both the rights of individuals and the proper conduct of government. The request for unambiguously irrelevant material goes beyond the powers of the inquiry." As to Boris Johnson's WhatsApps during the pandemic, there was yet another twist. The Cabinet Office said it had been handed some material, but added, "We have not been able to verify the completeness of this material, and it does not cover the whole of the specified time period, but only the period from May 2021, when the former Prime Minister acquired a new phone." Today, he wasn't keen to talk about exactly what he handed over yesterday.
Never interviews here.
But later, a source close to Boris Johnson said that he still had the old phone, but had been told to switch it off for security reasons. Among those who lost loved ones, such as Lindsay Jackson, whose mother died of COVID in a care home, there was dismay over the government's stance.
I mean, every single day when these things happen, these revelations come out, it's just more salt in the wound for the 250,000 families in this country who lost people to COVID.
One of Britain's most senior judges, Lord Savile, who led the Bloody Sunday inquiry, said if he was chair now, he'd quit.
If I was prevented from conducting a full and proper inquiry, I might seriously consider resigning on the grounds that I was unable to do a proper job.
Tonight, Labour has also accused the government of obstructing the inquiry and urged the Prime Minister to think again.
And Libby's here to take us through some of the fallout from this. I mean, this move, in many people's eyes, won't just undermine the whole inquiry and the premise of it, but also goes to the heart of this particular Prime Minister's time in office, when he pledged integrity, accountability so vividly when he took up the job.
Yes, I think that is the problem, when you present yourself as the man who's come in and is clearing up the mess left by your predecessors. It's not a good look to be quibbling with a senior judge like Baroness Hallett about what evidence she is allowed to see. But that is the situation the government finds itself in tonight. Now, the Cabinet Office, in its letter, makes clear that there are issues of principle at stake that they believe, and that there are questions of people's privacy that do need looking at closely. And they believe that the remit that Baroness Hallett considers to be her own preserve has been drawn too widely. But as I say, I think it's very difficult for them to set up this inquiry and then turn around and say that the judge who's in charge of it really can't see critical documents. Many people believe that someone as senior as Baroness Hallett herself should be able to decide. And you saw Lord Savile there, who chaired the Bloody Sunday inquiry. He said if he was in her position, he would quit. So I think this is a very serious matter for the government. Also, they do seem to have been slightly outsmarted by one Boris Johnson, who seems to have been able to present himself as being willing to cooperate, where the government is actually not doing so. I think the reality is that we saw there that what he has handed over actually doesn't amount to very much at all. In fact, it was only WhatsApp messages from his phone from May 2021, when I believe the pandemic was almost over.
OK, Libby, thank you for taking us through all of that. Thank you. Now, sadly, not for the first time in Parliament, there have been reports of abusive behaviour towards young women by a male MP. In these latest claims, 3 of the 6 women are female MPs. The accusations, inappropriate touching. The Labour Party has suspended Geraint Davies, the MP for Swansea West, over what it called incredibly serious allegations. Mr Davies said he doesn't recognise those allegations.
The allegations stretch back at least 5 years, most made by women far younger than the 63-year-old Welsh MP. One woman, who was 22, alleged Geraint Davies bought her alcohol in Parliament and invited her back to his nearby flat. Another claims he sent her sexually suggestive messages. At least 3 claims against Geraint Davies are reportedly made by fellow Labour MPs. One MP told ITV News he boasted about bringing Russian prostitutes to Parliament. Geraint Davies said he didn't recognise the allegations. If I have inadvertently caused offence to anyone, he said, then I am naturally sorry. Geraint Davies's behaviour appeared to be an open secret in parts of the Labour Party. One Labour MP told ITV News today these allegations were just the tip of the iceberg. Another party official told us they were surprised it took so long for stories like this to emerge. This morning, I asked another Welsh Labour MP if he knew anything.
Westminster is awash with rumours and counter-rumours, and I genuinely just try to not get engaged in those rumours, because at the end of the day, what you need is to base decisions and actions on facts and proper investigations.
So far in this Parliament, 4 by-elections have been triggered after MPs stood down following allegations of sexual misconduct. One, Chris Matheson, strongly denies any wrongdoing. An unnamed Conservative MP accused of rape and sexual assault has been told to stay away from Parliament. 4 other MPs have had the whip suspended over allegations of inappropriate sexual behaviour. Unions say the complaints process has improved, but Parliament still has a long way to go.
Making a complaint against an MP, they are a powerful person, particularly if you're political staff, because they might want to go ahead and work for the party, they might want to go ahead and be an MP themselves. It's a big step to make that complaint against a powerful person.
Labour says the allegations against Geraint Davis are incredibly serious and has suspended him from the party pending an investigation. Harry Horton, ITV News.
To MPs on the Culture and Media Committee now, who were already due to talk to TV bosses next Tuesday, including, they said, about the departure of Philip Schofield from ITV. Now they've said they want to talk specifically about that with the Chief Executive of ITV, Dame Carolyn McCall, at a separate session a week later. Well, Mark's been going through the MP's statement. What have they had to say, Mark?
One of the key lines, Julie, is that the Culture and Media Committee say the Philip Schofield case raises fundamental issues around safeguarding and complaint handling, and they've asked for Dame Carolyn McCall to go in front of the committee and face questions on those points in less than 2 weeks' time. It's important to point out this is now a separate session that will fully focus on the fallout from Philip Schofield's departure as a presenter on This Morning after he admitted to an unwise but not illegal affair with a much younger male colleague. Another session on Tuesday of next week, where ITV will appear alongside other broadcasters, will concentrate on the draft media bill. Now, as for the Schofield situation, it was just yesterday where Dame Carolyn confirmed that a review would be carried out by a lawyer to establish what's happened, the facts, and whether any of ITV's procedures need strengthening or changing. That was confirmed in a letter sent to, among others, Dame Caroline Dynage, the chair of the Media Committee, and today we had a response from her saying that safeguarding and complaint handling should be open to scrutiny and the public must have confidence in the robustness of procedures, and went on to ask for Dame Carolyn to go in front of the committee, face those questions, give evidence on June the 14th. ITV's yet to comment on that, but a separate development tonight, Julie. Philip Schofield's given an interview with The Sun newspaper, and in it he says he's utterly broken and ashamed, but stressed he did not groom the young male he had an affair with. On the lies that he told, he says, "I'm sorry, I'll forever be sorry, I'll die sorry, I'm so deeply mortified."
OK, Mark, thank you very much indeed for that. Thank you. In Australia, Ben Roberts-Smith is a household name, a VC-winning former SAS soldier with a row of medals to prove it. But he is, according to a court in Sydney, no longer a national hero. A judge decided that 4 newspaper articles branding Corporal Roberts-Smith a war criminal for killing unarmed Afghan prisoners were mainly true.
Corporal Benjamin Roberts-Smith.
He is Australia's most decorated living veteran, with a Victoria Cross, a medal for gallantry and recognition of his bravery straight from the top. But Corporal Ben Roberts-Smith's longest battle was in court against reporters who accused him of war crimes. And now a judge has ruled what they said was substantially true.
The applicant murdered or was complicit in and responsible for the murder of Afghan males. The respondents have established the substantial truth of imputations 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 and 9.
Stories in 3 Australian newspapers included reports that in 2012 Roberts-Smith kicked an unarmed man down a cliff, then ordered he be shot, and that he executed another found in a Taliban tunnel 3 years before. When the stories surfaced, he sued the papers and was always confident that he would win.
Their story is simply false. Their evidence is completely baseless.
His heroism was such a fact of Australian life, they even put his face on a stamp. But after a trial that lasted more than 100 days and cost more than £13 million, to his opponents went the spoils.
Publishing a story of this magnitude is never easy, but high-quality investigative journalism is vital to a thriving democracy. Nine's unequivocal backing of this reporting and our defence of it is a clear demonstration of its commitment to quality journalism.
Claims of involvement in 2 other murders were not proven, nor were those of violence against his partner at a hotel. And in a criminal trial, the standard of proof required would be higher than it was here. But the judge said Roberts-Smith had disgraced his country. He has 42 days to consider if he'll appeal. Callum Watkinson, News at 10.
To the United States now, and a photo opportunity involving President Biden this evening that went spectacularly wrong. He tripped and fell at a military graduation ceremony. To Dan, our US correspondent, who can talk us through it. Dan, what did you witness from those images?
Well, this was at an Air Force cadets ceremony, as you say, and as he walked away after an hour and a half on stage, he tripped, apparently over a sandbag, and fell, quite harshly. He was helped to his feet, as you can see, but then did manage to walk back unaided to his seat and took a seat pointing to the obstacle that apparently had tripped him up. Afterwards, his communications secretary tweeted out that he's fine, and we've subsequently seen pictures of him walking to Air Force One looking fine and smiling. He's on his way back here to Washington now, but clearly this is already being seized on by his political opponents as evidence of his frailty. Donald Trump himself was speaking as this happened and was asked about it and said that's not inspiring. His son Donald Trump Jr. Posited the question on Twitter, how many times has Joe Biden fallen when the cameras aren't rolling? And clearly they're making the point about his age. He's 80 now, he'll be 82 at the time of re-election if he is re-elected, and 86 at the end of any second term. And don't expect this video will go away. I suspect it will be used in attack ads going forward in the next 12 months.
It'll be a long road to that election. Dan, thank you very much indeed for that. Thank you. Now, the mystery surrounding the deaths of 2 children in the sea at Bournemouth yesterday afternoon is no closer to being explained, even though there were hundreds of people on the beach at the time. There has, though, been one development today. ITV News understands a pleasure boat in the area at the time has been impounded. The Assistant Chief Constable of Dorset Police spent more time in her news conference this lunchtime outlining what didn't happen rather than what did.
An air ambulance heads towards the hospital. On the beach below, its crew had been trying to save the lives of holidaymakers pulled from the sea. Half-term tourists watched on as the emergency services carried out a major rescue operation. Iman was in the crowd. She'd taken her son to the seaside for the first time.
There was a lot of chaos, but everyone was just so concerned. There was a lot of panic, and I think everyone's first reaction was just the horror of what's happened.
At 4:30 yesterday afternoon, police officers and paramedics were called to Bournemouth Beach to reports of swimmers in trouble. As people on the beach became aware that others were in the water and had got into difficulty, they rushed in to try and help them. The emergency services pulled 10 people out of the sea. 8 of them were treated on the seafront, but 2 children, a 12-year-old girl and 17-year-old boy who weren't related, were taken to hospital, where they later died. Today, Dorset Police tried to put an end to rumours about what happened in the water.
Early investigation indicates that there was no physical contact between a vessel and any of the swimmers at the time of the incident. I can also confirm there is no suggestion of people jumping from the pier or jet skis being involved.
But tonight, ITV News understands a pleasure boat has been impounded, though police have not confirmed it's been seized in relation to their investigation.
Vessel folks, please take care as the vessel may move about water.
This video was taken from on board the vessel which left Bournemouth Pier just after 4 p.m. yesterday. The boat company had said earlier this would be their first trip of the day once sea conditions had improved. Today, as thousands of families and groups of teenagers returned to the resort, the council faced calls to reassess their beach and pier safety measures.
At this point, we are thinking about the families that have lost their children. They came to the beach yesterday for a great day out and they've gone home without a child. That is our priority at the moment. Our staff will do everything they can to make sure that the beach remains safe.
Tonight, a man in his 40s who was arrested on suspicion of manslaughter has been released under investigation. While inquiries into how 2 young people lost their lives on one of Britain's busiest shorelines continue. Ellie Pitt, News at 10, Bournemouth.
What turned out to be the deadliest night of Russia missile strikes on the Ukrainian capital, Kyiv, in May left 3 people dead. They included a 9-year-old girl and her mother. All 3 were among a group of people trying to get into an air raid shelter that turned out to be locked. The attack coincided with events in Kyiv to celebrate International Children's Day. Ukrainian air defences said they had shot down all 10 missiles, but falling debris caused damage and casualties on the ground. The varying fortunes of house prices through the pandemic and the cost of living crisis are now on a definite downward spiral thanks to higher mortgage rates. The Nationwide Building Society, Britain's second biggest mortgage lender, says prices have fallen at their fastest for almost 14 years. They were down 3.4% year on year in May, and the Society believes they have further to drop.
We've just reduced down now to 330,000.
Take us through the house.
Higher interest rates are making life harder for estate agents. An era of cheap money has come to an end. The owner of this house has just dropped the asking price in the hope of a sale.
I think if they go much higher, it will cause a lot of damage to the housing market. I think they've got to be very careful. If interest rates continue to rise, it's just going to keep a lot of people stuck where they are and unhappy.
Swindon is home to the Nationwide. Britain's biggest building society is also one of its biggest mortgage lenders. According to the Nationwide, house prices fell in May and were 3.4% lower than a year earlier. The price of the average home stood at £260,000. That's still £40,000 higher than in March 2020, just before lockdown began. But interest rates are now expected to rise higher and for longer to contain inflation. The markets are betting that bank rate, currently 4.5%, will peak at 5.5% at the beginning of next year.
Inflation is falling far more slowly than had been hoped. In the last week, lenders, including the Nationwide, have been repricing their mortgages. The interest paid on the average two-year fixed-rate deal is now 5.5%. A year ago, it was 3%. The cost of borrowing is surging, prompting people to repay their loans at a record rate.
Most economists expect house prices to continue falling, but there is a shortage of homes in the UK. And what happens next will depend to a large extent on what happens to unemployment.
It's got very low unemployment still. That means we haven't really seen any people being forced to sell their homes like we've seen in previous housing downturns. So if that remains the case, I think that a house price crash can be avoided.
So you've got an understairs cupboard here.
Kevin and Benny Fernandez are first-time buyers. They've been looking in Swindon for 6 months. In that time, their prospective mortgage repayments have risen by £150 a month. Prices are falling, but still out of reach.
Sometimes I feel like giving up. It's very sad. And it's even more sad thinking that I've been into this country for a long time now and then, still living in a rent house and can't afford to buy a house.
Swindon is famous for its magic roundabout, and mortgage rates are on something of a roundabout ride. The housing market may look confusing and perilous at the moment, but crashes are pretty rare. Joel Hills, News at 10 in Swindon.
German police have given an update on what they found during their 3-day search around a remote reservoir in Portugal, 30 miles from where Madeleine McCann went missing. They've confirmed objects were recovered, but they can't say yet whether they are linked to Madeleine's disappearance 16 years ago. Now, a celebration of Welsh culture and language has been drawing big crowds of young people in Carmarthenshire this half-term week, and the Urdd Eisteddfod can't come at a better time. The number of Welsh speakers is falling despite a target of reaching 1 million by 2050. The latest census found that the number of Welsh speakers dropped from 19% to 17.8% between 2011 and 2021. This means around 23,700 fewer people speaking the language. It's been driven by a fall in young people speaking Welsh. For those aged between 5 and 15, it is down by 6%. The reason, some suspect, the impact of the pandemic.
It might be the biggest festival you've never heard of. Every May half-term, young Welsh speakers from all over the country gather to celebrate, socialise and compete at the Urdd National Eisteddfod. Here, the most popular celebrity is the mascot, Mr Urdd.
We've got 3 stages, 300 competitions ranging from art and craft to cookery to makeup design, folk dancing to singing to choir singing to reciting to poetry. It's so much. It's really, you know, engaging in Welsh culture at its best for the children and people of Wales.
In so many ways, the Welsh language is thriving. Around 100,000 people visit this festival every single year. But there are concerns too. Despite ambitious targets from the Welsh Government, the number of speakers is declining. This Welsh-speaking nursery just outside Carmarthen is in demand.
A lot of families, Welsh speakers, non-Welsh speakers, Welsh learners are choosing us because we are a full Welsh nursery and they want their little ones to learn Welsh, which is positive because they are our future.
Here they feel they're sowing the seeds of the future of the Welsh language, but the most recent census data paints a different picture, with a decrease in children and young people speaking Welsh, as well as a decline in the language's heartlands, like here in Carmarthenshire. Down the road at the Eisteddfod, the Welsh Government are keen to trumpet their plans for 1 million Welsh speakers by 2050, but a recent report said those plans will fail unless more than 15,000 new Welsh-speaking teachers are recruited.
We have teachers in our schools who are teaching Welsh every single day of the year.
You don't have enough?
Well, we haven't hit our targets, but there's a challenge for recruiting teachers right across the world. What we've got in Wales is a 10-year plan with progress in each year to increase the numbers of teachers able to teach the Welsh language or teach through the medium of Welsh.
There's plenty to smile about at the Eisteddfod, but today only around 18% of residents speak Welsh. That's compared to 37% a century ago. Doubling the number of speakers by 2050 will be no mean feat. Rhys Williams, News at 10, Carmarthenshire.
One of, if not the greatest footballer who's ever played the beautiful game is on the move. Lionel Messi is leaving Paris Saint-Germain after 2 seasons. The club's home match on Saturday night will be his last. Messi struggled to find his feet in his first season in the French league after leaving Barcelona. This season has been better, but the French champions still haven't won the Champions League, which Messi was recruited to help achieve. He may now move to Saudi Arabia to see out his incredible career. And finally, on the Isle of Rum off the west coast of Scotland, they are celebrating a big anniversary. Rum is home to a 1,000-strong population of red deer, and as it happens, only 30 people. The anniversary relates to the deer. It's half a century since they came under the watchful eye of scientists, lately from Edinburgh University, and are now part of one of the oldest wildlife studies in the world.
The jewel of Scotland's Inner Hebrides. The Isle of Rum's deserted beaches and dramatic landscapes are a nature lover's paradise. Only 30 people are lucky enough to call it home, but one of the Isle's main occupants is the red deer. Hundreds live in the north of the island, although they aren't always easy to spot.
And you can see one with a white collar there. Can you see her?
Yes, at the back of the group?
No, at the front.
Oh gosh.
And that's a hind called Droplet.
Josephine Pemberton has been studying this herd for almost 40 years.
Well, they're up there because it's a very warm day and they're catching a breeze.
The research has led to world-first discoveries, particularly the impact of climate change.
A year class gets a lucky winter, so a nice winter. You have a cohort which goes through the whole of life at an advantage compared with other cohorts.
And that's just weather differences. And
this is all about weather differences in the year of birth, and I think it was first documented on this project. It's now a well-known phenomenon.
The University of Edinburgh study is celebrating its landmark 50th year this month. Antlers spanning those decades are kept as good comparisons in mating success.
You have to have a good set of antlers and a decent set of antlers, but
the size of the antlers doesn't matter.
Enormous antlers may not always be an advantage if you break them. You can't just tell from looking at a stag whether he's going to be super successful or not.
This is Komachi, one of the most tame deer of the study. She's currently pregnant and they're expecting she could give birth any day now, at which point her calf will have its ear tagged, its weight taken and blood sampled for DNA analysis. PhD students like Sarah Dobson are tasked with spotting newborn calves by tracking the mothers from lookout points.
I'm watching her quite diligently to see if she goes anywhere and to see if a calf pops up out of nowhere.
It's quite challenging. I mean, they're so camouflaged.
Yeah, it is. It's very, very challenging. It does take a while to kind of get the eye for them, but they do eventually appear.
Calving season will continue throughout June, with each newborn adding to the potential discoveries that will continue to shape our understanding of wild animal populations around the world. Louise Scott, News at 10, Isle of Rum.
I think quite a lot of them are pretty good at hiding, don't you? That is all for tonight. From all of us, say good night, and we will see you tomorrow.
First thing today will be lovely and warm, and by breakfast time it could be on the sunny side. Heinz tomato ketchup, no added sugar and salt, sponsors ITV National Weather.
A very good evening to you. We've had mixed conditions as we started a new month. A little cloud out there in the next few hours, but brighter skies return as we end the week and feeling pleasantly warm in that sunshine. Clearer skies for some overnight, but the cloud in the east becoming a little more extensive as the night wears on. The breeze from the North Sea keeping Mr Murk at bay, and into a new day, very much a split setup with the best of the clearer skies across parts of Scotland, Northern Ireland, Cumbria, West Wales and the West Country. Here's some lovely sunshine from the word go, if a little chilly first thing before the sunshine gets to work. Elsewhere, like today, disappointingly grey skies initially, but then this cloud nibbled away and cheering up quite nicely into the afternoon. In sheltered, sunnier spots, highs of 22 degrees or so, and that sunshine making all the difference. Where we've got the breeze, a little cooler, a little fresher, particularly around those eastern coasts. Once more, those temperatures a little lower than we'd like, but at least it's looking a little better and brighter than of late. See you soon.
Heinz tomato ketchup, no added sugar and salt, sponsors ITV National Weather.